Today, we're diving into two challenges that are so much more than just numbers on a page: poverty and unemployment in India. They're often called two sides of the same coin, and in this explainer, we're going to break down exactly how they're connected and what's being done to try and break the cycle.
But before we get into the policies and the data, let's just take a moment to remember what this is really about. You know, living below the poverty line isn't some abstract idea. Think about it. It can mean not knowing where your next meal is coming from, living in really cramped, unsafe conditions, or facing a much shorter life expectancy. That's a human reality behind all the strategies we're about to explore.
So how do we tackle a topic this huge? Well, here's our game plan. First, we're going to get crystal clear on what poverty actually means. Then, we'll dig into its root causes and see exactly how unemployment fits into the picture. And finally, we'll shift from the problems to the solutions, looking at the government's big picture strategy and the specific programs trying to make a difference on the ground.
All right, first things first, we have to define our terms. Because if you want to solve a problem as massive as poverty, you first have to agree on what it is you're trying to solve. So what do we actually mean when we say someone is poor?
At its very core, poverty is so much more than just not having money. It's a state of being cut off from the absolute essentials of a decent life. Yeah, food and shelter, of course, but also things that are just as crucial, like education and access to healthcare.
And this is a really important distinction to make. Poverty isn't just one thing. On one side, you have absolute poverty. This is about pure survival, the daily struggle to afford even the most basic food to live. But then, on the other side, you have relative poverty. This is more about inequality, about where you stand compared to everyone else in your society. You might have enough to get by, but you're being left further and further behind. Now, to put a number on this, governments create what's called a poverty line. And you might want to sit down for this. Back in 2011-12, that line was set at just 1,000 rupees a month for a person in a city. That's about 33 rupees a day. For everything: food, rent, transport, all of it. In rural areas, it was even less. That one number really tells you the staggering scale of this challenge.
Okay, so that's the what. Now let's get into the why. Poverty doesn't just appear out of nowhere. It has really deep roots. Let's start digging into some of the main causes.
A huge part of the story starts in rural India. For one, farm incomes are shrinking. If you have poor irrigation, a bad monsoon season can be completely devastating. And if there are no other jobs around, you're pretty much trapped. This can get even worse when land is used for cash crops to export, which can actually drive up the price of basic food for the local communities themselves.
And it's not just about farming. A lack of education or skills closes the door to better-paying jobs. You add to that certain social pressures that can lead families into heavy debt, and you create this vicious cycle where people just can't get ahead. And sometimes, it's because they aren't even aware of the government programs that are actually designed to help them.
And this brings us right to our next section, the unemployment challenge. Because as you're about to see, you really can't talk about poverty without talking about jobs.
This quote just says it all, doesn't it? It's a simple idea, but it's so powerful. A decent, stable job is the most direct ladder out of poverty. Without that ladder, poverty can feel like a trap you can never escape. The two are just fundamentally linked. So, what do we officially mean by unemployment? Well, it's not just anyone without a job. The definition is really specific. It's a person in the working age group, so between 15 and 60, who is ready, willing, and able to work for the going wage, but simply cannot find a job.
And unemployment itself is complicated. It's not just one single problem. You've got seasonal unemployment, which is super common in agriculture in the downtime between planting and harvesting. Then you have something called disguised unemployment, where, say, a family farm has 5 people doing a job that really only needs 2. And maybe the most frustrating of all is the rise in educated unemployment. People who have done everything right, they've earned their degrees, but still can't find a job in their field.
So, the problems are pretty clear. But what about the solutions? Let's switch gears and look at the government strategy for taking on these twin challenges.
So what's the game plan? The main thing to get here is that there's no single magic bullet. The government strategy is more like a blueprint with a bunch of interconnected parts. It starts with growing the whole economy, but, and this is key, making sure that growth is shared more fairly. This means investing in areas like agriculture and small industries to create jobs, which then supports the final piece, investing in people through better education, health, and living conditions.
Okay, so that's the high-level strategy. Now let's look at how that actually translates into real, on-the-ground programs that are designed to make a difference.
First up, a program that goes right to the roots of rural poverty. The Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchi Yojana aims to give farmers a more reliable water supply through better irrigation. The goal is simple. If farmers aren't totally dependent on unpredictable monsoons, they have a much better chance at earning a stable income.
Building on that whole theme of water security, we have the National Drinking Water Program. Now, the name focuses on drinking water, but it's also about a much broader strategy for managing water, making sure it reaches every field and protecting the land to prevent things like soil erosion.
Now here's a really modern, tech-based solution. The eNAM scheme is an online marketplace for farmers. It lets them sell their produce directly to buyers all across the country, which cuts out the middlemen who often take a huge chunk of the profit. It's all about using technology to help farmers get a fair price for their hard work.
Now, this is one of the biggest and most famous programs out there. Manrega directly attacks unemployment by providing a legal guarantee. It promises at least 100 days of paid, unskilled manual work to every rural household that wants it. This acts as a crucial social safety net, providing a source of income when other work just isn't available.
Empowering women is also a core part of the strategy. Mission Mongolam does this by helping to organize women into self-help groups, where they get skill-based training and support to start their own small businesses. Because when a woman earns a stable income, it creates a direct path out of poverty, not just for her, but for her entire family.
So we've seen the problem, the causes, and this incredibly complex web of solutions. There's a clear strategy and dozens of programs trying to tackle these issues from every angle. But the big question remains, doesn't it? Are these programs enough to truly eradicate poverty for good? Or are there deeper, structural changes that still need to be made? That's a question that India continues to grapple with every single day.